Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
There are many different elements to a complete retirement plan, and it takes time to make sure you've covered all your bases. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it may offer you the guidance you need to make the right decisions about your retirement plan. From deciding on a specific date to retire, to reviewing your income sources, to picking a place to live, this guide discusses numerous topics that are important to your overall planning. Many other issues need to be considered as well, like solidifying your estate plan and establishing lifestyle goals. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was... This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up, because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Todd, many people are afraid that if they transfer money to an irrevocable trust, they will be giving up control of their assets and will have to ask their trustee for permission to spend their own money. Now, is this a valid concern?
No, it's really not. And folks, when you think about irrevocable trust, please remember that there are many different kinds of irrevocable trust. There are some that require a loss of control, rigidity, inflexibility. However, the trust we're talking about when you're protecting assets from a nursing home allow the donor to remove and replace the trustee, allow the donor to have really an unbelievable amount of control over the assets that are in the trust. They can live in their house, they can manage and invest their own money, they can sell a house, they can buy a new house. When the money's invested, they can have the income come directly to them. Folks, the control you keep over your assets in an irrevocable trust is really something you must try to learn about. And that's why we're giving you away a guide today to help you understand these trusts.
Request this brand new guide from the folks at Cushing and Dolan at 866-848-5699. It's called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trusts. Cushing and Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. 866-848-5699, or you can request it from LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing and Dolan. Cushing and Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes, and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti.
Chuck, Mark, and Ben with you today, and we're going to kick things off with this piece from the Bloomberg. There was a late-night post by President Trump on Truth Social. I'll quote it here. I like President Xi of China, always have and always will, but he is very tough and extremely hard to make a deal with. That was at 2:17 this morning, and so the obvious question is, what does one do with this? And the answer is probably nothing, because I don't know that there's anything in here that really tells you much other than the president wanted to, note that Xi was a tough trade negotiator.
And that he possibly has an enlarged prostate.
It says that?
No, if you're up at 2:15 a.m., I assume it's a trip to the bathroom.
President of the United States.
Normal for a man of his age.
I could see,
Normal for a man of his age.
I could see one being up, at night with, a myriad number of concerns about, the general world as a whole. So I think that as markets obviously look at this and they're trying to digest what this means, there are multiple different interpretations that you could potentially go down. We'll discuss a couple of them, but honestly, I don't know how long I want to dig into this just because I don't know how much meat there is. One interpretation is, hey, things aren't going well with trade negotiations with China, and there could be a couple different reasons for that. I'll note this piece from the New York Times that gets at the fact that China has basically halted exports of rare earth minerals to the United States, and it could be that the very simple reason is Xi's sitting there and his negotiating position is, if you want us to resume these shipments, you have to get rid of all tariffs. Like that's the first place that I go is, hey, like China is saying they do not want to play ball in this fashion, and here's the deal. You want us to ship you the rare earths? Fine, get rid of all the tariffs. It's one possible way to read it. Another possible way to read it is, hey, if you want to tell everyone that you've made the best deal possible, the first thing that you do is talk about how hard it is to negotiate it. So it could be that negotiations are actually going fine, and maybe you're on, some kind of path, and this is just, kind of playing up, hey, this was so difficult to do. I could see that as a possibility as well. It could also be something where maybe the U.S. actually has the upper hand in negotiations, and this is just, the president trying to talk up Xi so that Xi has something to go back to, his people with domestically and say, yeah, see, they know I'm tough. Like, I got the best deal I could. So there are a bunch of different interpretations. I don't know that it really does any of us any good to speculate on exactly which one this is, but more as we've been doing for the last couple of months, hey, acknowledge, all the different possibilities so that you're not caught too off guard depending on how things progress.
Yeah, unfortunately, no matter how savvy we are in negotiating a deal with China, and no matter how well the ultimate deal, how favorable the ultimate deal is for us, unless we fix the root of the trade deficit, I don't mean to concede that it's a problem, but I'll use the phrase trade deficit problem, which is inadequate savings. That's not very intuitive, but Can
you talk about why that is the root cause of the problem? Because you say that, and I know a lot of our listeners are probably like, no, like these countries are ripping us off. Why is inadequate savings the root cause of the problem?
I could give you an example. In 2010, about $350 billion of our $450 billion trade deficit was oil. By 2020, that went away because we were producing as much as we consumed. Yet the trade deficit was still about $450 billion. It went elsewhere is one way to think about it. The reason is that the trade deficit, as you all know, is just the difference between imports and exports. When we import more than we export, we send dollars abroad. Say we buy a German car. Say we buy it from Mercedes. What does Mercedes do with those dollars? Well, they might invest them in a plant here or in treasury bonds. So our current account, which is the a financial accounting name for the trade deficit, our current account deficit is offset by a capital account surplus. That's the way it works out. It's called the balance of payments. And as they love to tell you in international economics classes, it must balance.
It has to balance.
Balance of payments must balance. So every dollar we send abroad has to come back in the form of an investment. Now, suppose we saved more. Saving more would reduce our dependence on foreign investment, number one, and it would also result in us consuming less exports. So the current account deficit is really at root a savings problem. That is not intuitive. If you're scratching your head, I did too the first time I heard it, and I still have to think about it. But in an accounting sense, it's absolutely true.
So, again, I want to work on this just because we hear people say this. And
let's draw it out.
So we buy a bunch of stuff here in the United States, and let's use Mercedes just as the example. Someone buys a Mercedes in the United States. Mercedes in Germany receives a bunch of money for making that car. And you're saying that right now what they do is they say, okay, we're going to hold, U.S. Treasury bonds or build another factory. I think they have one in Alabama, I think is where they have a Mercedes factory. We're going to expand that plant, or we're going to build one in South Carolina, and that's capital flowing back to the U.S., but not buying U.S. goods inherently. In order for that savings glut to be balanced, I think what you're saying is, hey, when that money flows to Germany, as opposed to them taking it and investing it in the United States, if they went out and bought more stuff with the dollars that they received, that would help to equalize the savings glut, buying more product instead.
That would address the bilateral deficit we have with Germany in your example.
That's all we're just working on, on one piece
Yeah, so
here.
we might be able to reduce the bilateral deficit with China if a favorable deal is successfully negotiated. But because our federal government go ahead.
No,
I want to make sure I'm being clear.
No, keep going. I'm just thinking.
But because the federal government dissaves, i.e. we have a massive budget deficit, and because our savings rate is paltry in historical terms, we will have a trade deficit other than during recessions when consumption goes down and savings goes up. The best cure for the trade deficit is one you don't want to take. It is a recession.
When you talk about savings rates, are you talking on the personal level, corporate level, or
overall savings?
What gets included in that?
I'm thinking the personal savings rate that, for example, we talk about once a month. So that's disposable income less spending. Savings by the federal government, so the budget deficit, which could also be a surplus, though that hasn't happened for a long time. Savings by other entities like companies, like additions to cash and cash equivalents. I'm not sure off the top of my head if that counts. Let's assume that it does, but it's going to be small in a relative sense. The big culprits, if you look at the ballooning budget deficit starting in the 1980s and the trade deficit, they moved in tandem. Indeed, one economist in the early 80s, his name is Paul Krugman. He won the Nobel Prize, famous international economist, researcher. I don't mean he's abroad. I mean he specializes in international economics. He predicted it. He said, if you run trade deficits this, he was part of Reagan's staff at the time. You run trade deficits this big, budget deficits. You're also going to have a trade deficit. And indeed, that's exactly what's happened. And the two series line up almost perfectly.
There's a lot there.
Sorry.
No. This is why are you apologizing? Like there's a ton there. Like I
don't know.
Like it's a really good topic to get into in terms of, how do you fix this? And part of it also stems from, again, when we talk about trade deficits and how they typically end up resolving, the conventional thinking is that they can't be in place for too long simply because if you have a trade deficit, the relative strength of currencies tends to end up balancing that out and the deficit resolves itself. That's what we've seen historically in a lot of situations, and that savings rate gets basically absorbed through the changes in currencies.
I think you could run a trade deficit indefinitely in the modern system. We just continue to pay back the investments that are made that come from the dollars that we send abroad and get recirculated back into our economy. But go ahead, sorry.
I think the case that the Trump administration would absolutely make is, hey, because the bulk of the trade deficit is with China, and China is not allowing its currency to appreciate as we buy more stuff from them. In turn, that is not balancing, and that's also helping to contribute to this savings glutton overseas versus in the U.S., and this is part of the reason why there's this push for, hey, we want to turn China into more of a consumption economy is to help balance that, but the Chinese government clearly doesn't want to do so.
I think that's a fringy view. I'm only taught. This is not my area. I'll just tell you what the consensus among researchers is, like what you're taught, when you take a class in this area, because, again, not my specialty. Come to think of it, I don't have a specialty. But anyway, I think that's a fringy view. I think 99 out of 100 economists would say trade deficit is ultimately a savings problem. You increase savings, reducing consumption. Those are two sides of the same coin, two faces of the same coin, or whatever the expression is, would fix it. If you think it needs to be fixed, they would go on to say, we don't think it needs to be fixed. It's not inherently problematic.
Let's talk a little bit more about this rare earth situation when we return. Quick break here, and then rare earths and China coming back.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Subscribe to our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
There are many different elements to a complete retirement plan, and it takes time to make sure you've covered all your bases. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it may offer you the guidance you need to make the right decisions about your retirement plan. From deciding on a specific date to retire, to reviewing your income sources, to picking a place to live, this guide discusses numerous topics that are important to your overall planning. Many other issues need to be considered as well, like solidifying your estate plan and establishing lifestyle goals. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school. The sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but irrevocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline Qualification Line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John and are consistently voted one of the top Caribbean vacation destinations. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, rich history, and a vibrant nightlife. Book your trip now to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. For reservations and more information, go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
So in the United States, we've already seen a number of automakers having to resort to some short-term pauses in production at various facilities. They're not really saying why, but I suspect it comes back to the fact that they can't get the rare earths that they need for production of different parts of the car. Rare earth elements, if you're not familiar with them, you're not really alone. I mean, how often does one talk about scandium or cerium on a regular basis?
Rarely, Chuck.
Rarely, as one would expect. I just ran out of my yearly supply of gadolinium because, gosh, we just go through that stuff left and right in our household, I'll tell you. But here's the thing. China produces about 90% of the world's supply of different rare earth materials, and you have these materials, in a lot of cases, used in strong magnets that are required for electric motors. And you might say, like, okay, that's great. Like, I'm not buying an EV. Why do I need this? And it's not just, you don't have electric motors just in an EV. Yes, that is for, like, the drive of the car, but you have them through, other functions in, think about your windshield wipers just as an example. As we all know, the wipers on the bus go swish, 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 and the only way they swish, swish, swish is with an electric motor that drives them. Like, you don't hook up a little gas engine to the windshield wiper and go, all right, pull the cord, Jimmy, like it's time to fire up the wipers. No, there's an electric motor that fires those, and you can't have working windshield wipers without the electric motor to do so. So I think ultimately what you have here is automakers are now saying, okay, we've got to figure out how to do this. And one of the interesting things that they are talking about actually is potentially moving some production of these electric motors to China in order to get around the export ban and then exporting the finished product instead, which would be completely the opposite of what the Trump administration wants. And again, this is not something that I think is going to happen quickly, but it's something that car companies are talking about because they can't build cars without this stuff.
Yeah, it's another lesson in how interconnected the global economy is.
Yes.
And how difficult it will be to decouple. And if we're going to do it, I guess we better just commit to it and it'll be more severe than pulling the Band-Aid off. It'll be more like pulling your stitches out prematurely or something. I don't know how committed we are to enduring the pain necessary to decouple.
No, and I think that it's not something that you can simply... It's not something that you can project how long it'll take or how much pain there would be in doing so, just because of stuff like this. There's no easy, quick workaround to be able to deal with this, given how we have, let the production of, whether you're talking about raw materials or, intermediate products, kind of fester in this economy. We've just not done anything in the last 30 to 40 years. We've basically said, hey, we don't want this in our backyard. Let's outsource it somewhere else because of environmental concerns or because of cheapness, obviously, of doing it somewhere else. And the problem there is, as Mark mentioned, look, if you want to decouple, you don't really have a quick path unless you do the legwork in advance of the decoupling by spending a bunch of money to develop this stuff before you say, okay, buy China.
It's funny in a sad way. In the 80s and 90s, the prevalent thinking was the more closely coupled we become with governments that we may disagree with ideologically, the more they'll become like us.
Oh, yeah.
People will get a taste of it. They'll want to live like us. That was a little chauvinistic and naive, but that was almost universally accepted. I guess it didn't occur to anybody, certainly not me, not that I was in a policymaking capacity at the time, it didn't occur to anybody smart and responsible that we may have to decouple quickly if that doesn't work.
Well, and the other thing is it assumed... Here's what's really interesting about this is, look, the U.S., from the perspective of, like, cultural exports, like, what's cool, what's not, the U.S. has still kind of dominated the world stage over the last 30 years. There's no doubt about it. Just look at, the Apple symbol, or, the prevalence of, Marvel movies, and how, the worldwide box office, and how like 70% of gross from those movies comes from overseas now. Like there's clearly something where the international community views America as cool. The problem is, especially in authoritarian regimes, it doesn't matter if the people view Marvel as cool. If Xi says, you know what, it's fine, you guys can view that as cool, but here's how I want to run the country. And the people don't really have a chance to contribute to the discussion of that.
Yeah.
It's thinking that if you change the hearts and minds of millions, you can, change how a government behaves. And maybe on a long enough timeline that is true, but can you play on that timeline? If there's one person at the top in certain societies who says, no, it's my way or the highway, and this is how it's going to be. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we got Wall Street Watch, and then we're joined by Todd Lutzke from Cushing and Dolan for Ask Todd. Get your questions ready for Todd.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and irrevocable trusts can help. Keep your assets safe from probate and the nursing home by calling Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699. Get their new guide called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide this month titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist. Mike, one of the items on this is to address outstanding debts, and by that, I don't think we mean pay pay everything off, but more make sure you have a plan for different types of debt.
Yeah, there's always been that real goal for I think a lot of retirees to have no mortgage when you get to retirement, and I still see people trying to accomplish that, even if they might have a sub 3% mortgage, for example. And there can be some psychological benefit to paying off that piece of debt, but where it comes down to is prioritizing, hey, I might have a car loan, I might have a home equity line of credit, and while the mortgage could be the biggest payment, it shouldn't always be prioritized.
Beyond that, I also think it is something that you need to figure out how it fits into your monthly budget and whether you can continue to spend in the fashion that you've been spending, or do you have to make changes there?
Right. A lot of people use some rules of thumb when it comes to how much income they'll need in retirement, and those can be useful, but it all has to be customized to your individual plan. And the last thing you want to do is pay a whole bunch in taxes just to be able to pay down some debt that wasn't really a priority in the first place. And so definitely addressing your debt and knowing how to do that intelligently when you approach retirement is key and important.
The guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it from Armstrong Advisory Group is by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, and the guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, it's 10:34 and markets are up right now. The Dow Jones is up 91 points, or just over 0.2%. The S&P 500 is up 17 points, or just under 0.3%. And the Nasdaq is up just over 58 points, or 0.3%. Dollar Tree shares are down 10% after saying earnings per share could decline by as much as 50% in the current quarter, partly due to cost pressures from tariffs. Analysts polled by FactSet expected per-share earnings to fall just 2%. RV maker Thor Industries is up just under 3% after posting stronger than expected earnings for the fiscal third quarter and reaffirming full-year guidance. Thor earned $2.53 per share on revenue of $2.89 billion, while analysts surveyed expected $1.79 and $2.61 billion, respectively. Hewlett-Packard shares are up just under 1% after sales and profit at the data storage and networking services provider topped analyst estimates, and it raised its profit outlook, expecting to take a smaller hit from tariffs than previously expected, and saying most of its products comply with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada free trade deal. And finally now, CrowdStrike shares are down 5% after saying it expects current quarter revenue of between $1.14 billion and $1.15 billion, missing the consensus forecast of $1.16 billion from analysts polled. First quarter revenue match analyst estimates at $1.1 billion. I am Ben Kitchen, and that is Wall Street Watch.
This is Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you have an existing estate plan or are in the market for one, Todd Lutzke is here to answer your questions and help you plan for later life. Ask Todd is presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 35 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Visit CushingDolan.com. Now, here's Todd Lutzke.
As promised, we're now joined by the one and only Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan for Ask Todd. The segment is appropriately named because this is your chance to ask Todd your questions about your estate plan. Phone lines are wide open right now at 888-205-2263. That is the number to call to speak with Mr. Lutzke live on air. Again, 888-205-2263. Last week, I believe, actually it was 2 weeks ago, we set a record. We got through 4 calls. Usually we only get to 2 or 3 because of time limitations. So get calling early if you want to make sure we get to your call. Again, that number is 888-205-2263. One more time, 888-205-2263. Mr. Lutzke, how are you doing today?
I'm never better. How are you?
Good. I was thinking the other day about buying a coffin.
a coffin? You're not feeling well?
Well, then I realized that's actually the last thing I need.
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah, so I decided not to. Todd, I want to talk to you about these Medicaid irrevocable trusts.
Yes.
What do they actually do? What estate planning goals do they accomplish?
So I think there's so much to learn about irrevocable trust, but to try to answer that question, sort of point would be, they avoid probate, so lots of trusts do that, and I want people to know revocable and irrevocable do that. By putting assets in it, you're not going to have to go to probate. Secondly, they are designed, many people don't think this, but they're designed also to shelter for estate tax purposes on the first death if you're married. Remember, revocable trusts, that's really the big deal for a revocable trust. They say, we're going to help you shelter estate taxes, so on the first death there's none due, and on the second death there'll be less due or none due, depending on the size of your estate and how much we can shelter on the first death. Irrevocable Medicaid trusts do that as well. They have the same kind of language there when one spouse dies with that remainder share and marital share language. So thirdly, they both will provide a bloodline plan, to your family. And I think, the family behind the estate plan is always really more important sometimes than the cold IRS and probate analysis or parts of the equation. So they both can, sort of direct how these assets get to your family, when they get there, why they get there, are they protected from divorces, etc. And finally, the difference. The irrevocable will provide protection from the cost of long-term care nursing home. Again, takes 5 years, but get it in there. The revocable trust never will. So all of you folks listening, don't, and I've seen it happen. They come in, Chuck, and they say, I've had my trust in place for 5 years and Mom's going in the nursing home, but we're all set because I know all about that 5-year rule. And then they show me the trust and it's revocable. I got to tell you, folks, the revocable trust will never start the clock running. So people go into the lawyers all the time. They think they want to get nursing home planning done, and they end up leaving with a revocable trust. It's not doing it.
Talking with Todd Lutzke from Cushing and Dolan. Still room on the phone lines at 888-205-2263. That is the number to call to ask Todd your estate planning questions. 888-205-2263. Todd, when you talk about an irrevocable trust, people hear that word irrevocable and immediately they kind of they
cringe.
They clam up.
Yeah.
What kind of control does someone have to give up in order to use one of these irrevocable trusts in their estate plan?
So I'm going to say, and again, in the interest of time in radio, it would take a lot longer to explain the whole trust, but I just want people to at least conceptually understand that if I had to quantify it for people, I think you keep probably 95 to 98% control, and sometimes that's the easiest way to help people at least get off that dime and say, oh, well, if I'm going to keep that kind of control over the assets in the trust, maybe it's worth exploring this irrevocable trust further to learn exactly how they work, and get into the details of how they work. So I'm going to tell you, you really do keep a lot of control over this kind of irrevocable trust. But remember, there are other irrevocable trusts out there that you might have had that idea of sort of cringing and saying I lose control, because there are some that are designed for you to give up a lot of control, but not this one.
Talking with Todd Lutzke. Again, if you've got questions to ask Todd about your estate plan, room on the phone lines at 888-205-2263. We're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, right to your questions with Todd. That phone number is 888-205-2263. One last time, 888-205-2263.
Text us at 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we are covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but a revocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Elder life planning can be overwhelming, so be sure you're prepared, or you could make costly mistakes that affect your overall plan. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law and taxation, and they can devise a plan that covers you in every area where issues can arise. Irrevocable trusts are the most common type of trust that folks use for financial protection, and while they can be complicated to create, they help keep your assets safe because they contain specific protections that many of us need, like the possibility of eliminating your estate taxes. Their new guide is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. Learn more about how these trusts can benefit you and your family by calling 866-848-5699 right now and asking for your free guide today. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide right now by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Miss any of the show? Catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Talking with Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan. Again, if you've got a question for Todd, 888-205-2263 is the number. That number one more time is 888-205-2263. Let's go to Lisa in Worcester. Lisa, what is your question for Todd Lutzke?
Hi, Todd. Two-part question.
Okay.
One is, if my income from Social Security and pension is so high that I'm never going to qualify for Medicaid, is the irrevocable trust to save my house worthwhile. And secondly, I've had a couple lawyers in Massachusetts tell me that the irrevocable trust to save my house from the nursing home has been getting challenged by the state of Massachusetts. So they have refused to make me one because they're not trial lawyers.
Wow.
They're not litigators.
Wow.
Yeah.
So two very wow questions there. So first and foremost, let's take the second one first, the litigation one, and then I'll take the income one. So hang on, okay. I might have a follow-up for you. So first of all, folks, do these trusts get challenged? So I've been at it about 30 years, and the first 15, 20 years for sure, they've been like all over them. Now, in all fairness, doesn't matter that they're all over them. Knock on wood, every one of our trusts have succeeded and have been drafted properly. And as long as they're drafted properly, they win. And they protect assets from the nursing home. It's not a win. It's they're following the rules that are put out by the state and the federal government, and they are designed to protect the asset from the nursing home. So whether they're needing to be challenged at a fair hearing, not so much go into court so much, but fair hearings, yeah, it's happened. I've been to a lot of them, and again, it works. So there were, even back then, there would have been no reason not to do this. Because remember, if you don't do it, you lose for sure. So that's sort of the way I look at it. And the other reason is now, and I think it was 2021, I want to say, maybe a little earlier, there was a Supreme Court case here in Massachusetts where they finally took one of these trusts all the way to the SJC. And the SJC confirmed what we always knew, that these trusts, when drafted properly, do work. And the SJC was somewhat adamant about it when their decision to say to Mass Health, we don't want to see you back here. Stop coming back with the same argument over and over again because it doesn't work. And so that was extremely helpful. And I would say since then, 2020-ish, I've been to 0 fair hearings. So I'm going to say that issue is probably very inaccurate for him. And so anyone who wants these should not do them just because someone tells you they need to be litigated. Finally, income. Question to you. What is your monthly income between, you said, Social Security and pension, I guess?
Yes. What? It's over 5,000.
Okay. So that's why I wanted to ask you, because over 5,000 is nowhere near enough to cover the cost of a nursing home. Nursing homes, on average, in Massachusetts, certainly inside of $495, probably $15,000 to $16,000 a month, and you have $5,000 a month, so you are way short of the ability to private pay a nursing home. So please do your planning. Don't not do it. It works. Litigation is not an issue, or has been way less of an issue, really not an issue anyway, and you're way under for income. But I can also tell you the benefit of having such a large income. By the way, that is a great retirement income. Don't feel that it's not. It is. But more importantly, when you get on Medicaid, there's a Medicaid rate and a private pay rate. So the private pay rate is about $15,000, $16,000 a month. But the Medicaid rate is about $6,500 a month, give or take, maybe a little more. Wow. So even if you went on Medicaid and you had to pay and Medicaid would only be paying the difference between $5,000 and $6,500, home run. So even if there was never any planning done, the lien, like on a house or something, would be smaller. This is for other people who maybe haven't done planning and are faced with last minute nursing home care. But to you, rather than worry about any liens, I do the planning. Litigation notwithstanding, income not an issue. Hopefully that was helpful. Folks, that said, the actual kind of planning I would propose would be an irrevocable Medicaid trust. That's exactly what the guide is. New guide for the month of June. Unlocking the power of irrevocable Medicaid trust. What it does in a question and answer format is explain how they work. I mean, can I live there? Can I sell my house? Can I buy another house? Is there a gift tax when I transfer my assets in? Is there an income tax problem if I put rental property in? Can I continue to collect my income off the rent? I mean, every question you can think of, or we thought of anyway, we've put in the guide. And if you've never done one, like perhaps the caller didn't do one, and you've been afraid of them, I think after you read this guide, you will know, A, whether you love them, or B, whether you hate them and will never do them. So call and get the guide, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com. Again, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com.
Todd, when we talk about these irrevocable trusts, let's say that someone is through that 5-year look-back period.
Okay.
And they unfortunately have a long-term care situation that is hitting them at that point.
Okay.
How do they actually use that trust then to go about qualifying for Medicaid? Like, what actually happens then?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, because people always say, well, it's still my, it sounds like it's still my asset, right? But it's in a trust. So here's how it happens. First and foremost, now you've done your planning and you're crossing that threshold of going into the nursing home. So now you should go back to the lawyer that probably did the estate plan for you and apply for Medicaid. So that's a whole nother process called the Medicaid application process. But during that Medicaid application process is where they start using these documents, right? They're going to ask you for everything you could imagine financially, 3 years of tax returns. They're going to ask you for 5 years worth of bank statements and IRA statements and brokerage account statements. And they're going to want your Social Security card and Medicare card and, birth certificate. They don't believe you're a citizen unless you show them. So this is the process that really drills down to find out what you own. And yes, they will ask you, are you a beneficiary of a trust? Are you a trustee of a trust of any kind? Yes. If yes, submit the document, but you don't have to list the assets in it as countable. You can show them that you have it. You can show them that it's beyond 5 years. You can show them that you're probably going to be getting the income from the trust, and they're allowed to look into the trust and see what's in it, see how it works. But at the end of the day, again, coupled with this, and this goes back to the caller, coupled with this SJC ruling that we had back in 2021-ish, the assets in the trust will not be countable. But you got to show it. So folks, it does work. You just have to set it up, get the assets in, and then when you go to that application process, it will be protected.
Mr. Lutsky, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
This has been Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky has been presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 30 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Call 800-393-4001 or visit CushingDolan.com. The views expressed in this segment are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Armstrong Advisory does not provide any legal or tax advice. Please consult with your legal or tax advisor on such matters. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Still a bunch to come as we head towards hour number 2. We'll be talking a little bit about what we're seeing in the housing market with mortgages and rates. Also talking about some of the economic data that we got this morning. And then what is the current status of the tax bill in Congress and where does it go from here? So obviously, quite a bit still to get to as we head towards that second hour, and we'll be covering that. We've also got trivia and, a whole bunch. Stick around.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school, the sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the timeshare Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
There are many different elements to a complete retirement plan, and it takes time to make sure you've covered all your bases. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it may offer you the guidance you need to make the right decisions about your retirement plan. From deciding on a specific date to retire, to reviewing your income sources, to picking a place to live, this guide discusses numerous topics that are important to your overall planning. Many other issues need to be considered as well, like solidifying your estate plan and establishing lifestyle goals. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today, we're talking about how Medicaid irrevocable trusts operate. Now, Todd, it takes 5 years to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care. If you aren't sure you or your spouse will make the 5 years before going into a nursing home, should you even bother to do your estate planning?
The answer is absolutely yes, you should bother. And here's why, folks. There's people who maybe don't even start their planning until they're 80. It doesn't mean just because you're 80, you don't try, you don't plan, right? 85, you plan. You don't know whether you're going to get sick or not get sick. But by the same token, when you're 65 and you're doing your planning, you also might not make it past the 5 years. So just because you might not make it past the 5 years is not a reason to get this clock started. For example, lots of times when we put assets in the trust, we leave lots of assets outside the trust, especially IRA assets. So let's say you made it 3 years, but you had $200,000 in an IRA outside the trust. If I got $1 million worth of assets in the trust, I'm happy to spend $200,000 of my IRA to get past the remaining 2 years to get me protected from the nursing home with the $1 million that went in there. So getting the clock started is always better than not having the clock started.
Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and find out if they can help yours too. Request this brand new guide called Unlocking the Power of Medicaid Irrevocable Trust. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti.
It's Chuck, Mark, and Ben with you here, and kicking things off this hour, we got some economic data that I want to get to just because this week is just kind of, I think the technical term is sucked from an economic data perspective. before we do that, just looking at markets, the Dow's up 77 points right now. The S&P's up 17. NASDAQ up 69. So you got about 0.25% to 1/3% upward drift in markets. Nothing too exciting, but continued, floating up. And so obviously, good news for equity holders. You've got bonds getting bid up today. The 10-year down to 4.383 off 7.7 basis points. This on the back of some of the weak economic data that we've seen. So I think it makes sense to discuss what that might mean there. And then we've got oil, West Texas Intermediate, currently completely flat at 63.41 per barrel. No movement in either direction for oil. And we got gold continuing to move back up now, up another 23.90 an ounce to 34.01 even on the day. So again, markets, nothing too crazy going on, but a pretty strong bid in bonds. And again, it comes back to the economic data. So I want to touch on this here and what it is that we've seen this week. So Monday, we come in, first day of June. Okay, great. Let's see what we get. 10 a.m., ISM Manufacturing comes in at 48.5 versus 49.5 expected. Okay, whatever. The ISM Manufacturing has been, irrelevant for the last 3 to 4 years. It's been telling us that the U.S. economy has been horrible during that time, and it has not accurately predicted any turns this cycle. So, yeah, we can disregard it. It's fine. Even though immediately after it printed, the market sold off, 0.75%. It rebounded, pretty convincingly over the rest of the day. Okay, fine. Yesterday we come in, hey, second day of June, what are we going to get here? JOLTS comes in, job openings. Hey, they're better than expected. Okay, this is April, so it's not really up to date. It's now, 2 months out of date. And even though openings came in better than expected, the quits rate dropped also, which means the labor market might be getting a little more stagnated. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but that's kind of what we're seeing there. Kind of a mixed report, so you say, okay, fine, let's see what we get Wednesday. We come in this morning. Mortgage rates last week had fallen by about 6 basis points, but despite that, refis ticked down and the purchase index also ticked down as well. They're beating weak year-over-year comps just because last year at this time, rates were higher and things were really, stuck in the mud in housing. But part of that's also because there are fewer cash offers now because there's not as much liquidity sloshing around, and so cash offers have dropped as a percentage of total real estate transactions. Okay, so this is a little bit messy here. 8:15 this morning, ADP employment change, which is the black sheep of employment data. No one really likes to pay attention to it, but everyone still looks at it. It's the movie that you watch on TV that you don't tell anyone that you watch. Like, everyone looks at ADP, but no one wants to admit it to their friends. And so the ADP employment data came in this morning. Expectation was for 115,000 jobs created. Came in at 37,000, which is a pretty big miss. Okay, fine. Maybe it doesn't pass through directly into Jobs Friday, so we'll write that off. 10 a.m. ISM Services, which had rebounded in the April reading a little bit. And, people are saying, okay, is it going to bounce back again in May? The answer is no. We are expecting to see a reading of 52. It came in at 49.9 with the prices paid component rising to 68.7 from 65.1, and the new orders component dropping from 52.3 to 46.4. New orders slowing and prices going up is basically the definition of stagflation. Like, that's bad. What's the market do on it? Nothing at all. The market just continues to shrug this off. And so we're in this period now, this week at least, where the economic data this week hasn't been very good. And the market's just kind of saying, okay, whatever. It does feel like this is coming to a head on Friday, where you've got the actual, non-farm payroll report, and it feels to me like, hey, if this comes in better than expected for the second straight month and we print, high hundreds, low 200,000s on jobs created, okay, throw out all the data from the first part of the week and it doesn't really matter. If it comes in weak, then you sit there and you're like, okay, now we've had a week of economic data. The May data is starting to come in, and it's not painting a great picture about the economy. becomes the story. So it seems to me this Friday jobs report, again, we don't love to, those of you who have listened to our show for a while, most of the time we're like, yeah, this is not the most important Fed meeting. You can skip this one. This jobs report is setting up for a pivotal point. I don't know so much for the economy, because the economy is going to economy over the next few months. But I do think it's a pivotal point for markets where, hey, do you get that next leg up because jobs still look good? Or does the foundation of this market start to look shaky? It feels like we're building up to this Friday jobs report here.
Yeah, so why do we care? Because recessions or downturns are generally bad for equity prices, which is the primary focus, I think, of this show. It's the clearest universal metric of people's financial welfare. Stocks usually turn down in anticipation of recessions, though. Stocks respond not to what the economy or even companies did yesterday, but what they expect those variables to do in the future. We're not seeing signs of distress in equity markets. So that always gives me pause. Stocks are not a perfect leading indicator, but they're among, and they have been among, leading indicators included in forecasters' models of recessions from time immemorial. So I heed stocks are, unlike some of these other indicators you mentioned, which come at relatively, they're stale by the time we get them. They're pretty long frequencies between updates. Stocks are updated continuously by like the nanosecond or whatever fraction of a second you want to use in that example. And they are everybody's best guess of where the economy, where companies, therefore earnings, therefore the economy are going. So I don't know, Chuck. You look at the Atlanta Fed's GDP Now measure, and I know you do, and it suggests very high growth this quarter. It is a nowcast, not a forecast, so it tells you what the economy appears to be growing at as of today.
Yep.
Other Fed banks produce similar forecasts, and they all point to at or above trend growth, and trend growth is about 2%, and that's just a function of structural forces, likely productivity growth, likely labor force growth.
Well, I think in this case, with the projections for GDP this quarter, look, we kind of told everyone, hey, don't pay too much attention to the Q1 number that's going to come in weak because of this surge of imports that came in Q1. Well, that surge has reversed because you had this huge drop-off in imports after the imposition of tariffs. And so Q1, what was the revision? Negative 0.2, I think?
Mm-hmm. Annualized, right?
This one's coming in at 4.6. I basically look at them like average it out, and you get like 2.5%.
Yeah, which is about trend growth. It's a little bit above trend. Last year we grew at, I think, 2.8 or 2.9. The year before that it was 2.9 or 2.8. I forget. But that's quite solid. So the economy had momentum coming into 2025, as everybody knows. It hit a wall due to policy uncertainty. It seems to be, I don't want to use the phrase bouncing back, because many of the components of GDP never went anywhere.
No.
Spending eased a little bit. And there's some evidence of a little bit of consumer retrenchment, but nothing alarming. Look, recessions are really hard to forecast. I don't want to speak for this show, far be it for me to do that.
Well, you're on the show.
But I'll give you my 2 cents, which is the consensus of, I think, most serious researchers. Don't try to forecast recessions. We talk about the data. Most of these data go into economist models. Some of these data points don't. And the weighting economists assigned to them and how they use them varies as researchers update their models to try to improve their performance. But a lot of serious researchers will tell you it's a fool's errand. Don't bother. Yet at the same time, it's what's driving stock prices from day to day. So we give it our best shot.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, look, through the April data, there has been no major shift in the U.S. economy in either direction. There was no sharp acceleration nor any sharp deceleration. As we get more of the May data, do we start to see that trend changing in either direction? Is the question. The first few data points that we've gotten this month haven't been great, but it's only a few data points. And so I always caution people into reading too much into it, because the economy is always wiggling. That's the technical term. The economy is like a worm. It doesn't just go in a straight line through the dirt, it wiggles through it. And sometimes if you pay too much attention to those wiggles, you get the sense that the worm is turning, when in fact the worm is just wiggling and it's trying to get to where it's going. So I'm a big believer. Most of the time, don't pay attention to the wiggles. Like, note that they're happening. Like, understand what's going on and how they could evolve. But most of the time, the wiggles are exactly that. Hey, this quarter the economy grew at 2.7%. Next quarter it was 1.7%. That could have just been because of the timing on different purchases by some different groups and things like that, and it comes out in the wash. Occasionally, where you have meaningful changes in policy, like the imposition of tariffs and things along those lines, you do sit there and you say, hey, could this mean more? And you do pay closer attention to it. But all that we've seen, even this week at most so far, is a little wiggle and not really any meaningful deviation from the prior course.
Yeah, the challenge is the trend changing? You're describing trends and cycles. Trend lines, because they're engineered as such, are generally smooth. You could take a moving average. There are plenty of ways of calculating a trend for a series, a variable like economic growth. The question is the cycle just that? Will this variable return to its trend? Will economic growth get back on track? Or are we on some new trend line? If you think about what happened in 2008, we never really recovered. The growth rate recovered, but we never got back to the old trend line. It was that devastating. And there's evidence of persistence, very long-term persistence in changes in GDP, which is why these wiggles do get people's attention. Though, as you said, there's no way when you're living through them to know if you're witnessing some sort of change in the trend.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we've got trivia right after this.
The Financial Exchange has gone national. Hear the show daily on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Keep it here for the latest business and financial news, what's happening on Wall Street, and the president's economic agenda. The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Summer in New England is nearly upon us. The kids are home from school, the sun doesn't set until after 8. It's likely time for you to relax. Well, while you're relaxing, take a few minutes to check out visitusvi.com and research your next vacation in the United States Virgin Islands. The USVI has something for everyone, be it the rich history of St. Croix, the spectacular beaches of St. Thomas, or the tranquil quiet of St. John. Visit one island or all three and enjoy the vacation of a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com to make your reservation today. That's visitusvi.com.
There are many different elements to a complete retirement plan, and it takes time to make sure you've covered all your bases. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and it may offer you the guidance you need to make the right decisions about your retirement plan. From deciding on a specific date to retire, to reviewing your income sources, to picking a place to live, this guide discusses numerous topics that are important to your overall planning. Many other issues need to be considered as well, like solidifying your estate plan and establishing lifestyle goals. Call us right now at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but irrevocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long-term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts, and now's the perfect time to register for this year's 5K at Castle Island by visiting dav5k.boston. The event will sell out again, so if you're interested in participating, now's the time to reserve your spot. Come out and help support our great American heroes by joining us for the DAV 5K. Visit dav5k.boston to register or to make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston. Time now for trivia on the Financial Exchange. On this day in 1912, the first statewide minimum wage law was passed in the United States. The first minimum wage law was passed to protect women and children from predatory employers. Today's question, which state passed the first minimum wage law? Which state passed the first minimum wage law? Be the third person who texts us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you'll win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. The third correct response will be our winner. See the complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Let's talk a little bit about the Friday jobs report. So 8:30 a.m. on Friday, we're going to get the non-farm payrolls report. Expectation is for 130,000 jobs to be added. The prior month, we saw 177,000 jobs added. Unemployment expected to stay at 4.2%. Average hourly earnings is expected to tick up either 0.2 or 0.3%. Labor force participation rate expected to stay stable at 62.6%. So I made the comment in the last segment that this is kind of a big one because we've gotten a few different data points this week that haven't really been great, and the market has just kind of shrugged them off, and I think it's shrugged them off because, hey, the data for the last, several months has not really shown any meaningful change as a result of tariffs, and so until proven otherwise, this could just be a little bit of a wiggle as opposed to the start of a new trend, and I think that that's a reasonable take for the market to have. The question is, hey, as you get into May, you start to see more and more impacts now that you have, more distance from the imposition of the tariffs, and so we'll have to see if this turns into anything. I don't have a strong feeling as to, yes or no, this is going to move either particular way, but I do think if this is a good report, at least you can build the story. Okay, like the bad data that we got earlier this week isn't really feeding into real activity. Okay, you can, buy that. If it's a bad report, you say, maybe there's something that's starting to happen here, and you got to pay closer attention.
Yeah, because employment is lagging. It reflects decisions made months ago. I'd be a little surprised if it was wildly, at variance with other points of economic data that we've seen, like a really bad employment report. Well, you could argue GDP did contract in the first quarter. I don't want to minimize that. It's not just an accounting, it's not just a phantom of the
Isn't it kind of just an accounting thing?
Well, I mean, there were aspects. If consumption was weak, weakened, slowed, investment slowed. If those had been stronger, it wouldn't have been negative. There was the surge in imports, but that might reflect a structural change in the economy that's worth paying attention to. I wouldn't I wouldn't dismiss it. It's very easy to, in the moment, dismiss a bad number. That happens all the time. We all do it. But when you're looking at economic data, historically speaking, you don't excuse bad data away. When GDP contracts, it's usually, not always, but usually during broader recessions. That doesn't appear to have been the case in the first quarter, as it wasn't the case in the first quarter or second quarter, I forget which, because there were revisions of 2022. So I guess I'd be a little surprised, is what I'm trying to say, if this Friday's report suggested anything other than what we're seeing elsewhere. But after today's ADP number, which is not a great forecaster of the household derived statistic that we're all familiar with, the unemployment rate, maybe there is something deeper going on.
Yeah, the high-frequency labor indicators that we get, things like weekly claims. The U.S. Treasury also publishes statements as to Social Security tax withholding and stuff like that. And there's nothing there that's indicating a huge shift in trend. Like, again, some wiggles that you have, but even, points of time last year, you have these wiggles up and down as well. And they ultimately, didn't turn into anything last year. So I think there's, unless you see a, meaningful shift in a few data series over the next month, I think there's a convincing case that it's just going to, if you're of the belief that tariffs are going to impact the economy, you might not see it show up in the data until July, August, September. Just because it takes some time to come in.
Yeah, I don't think it's very hard to make the numbers work to get a recession out of tariffs. We've done some analysis internally. It's admittedly back of the envelope, but the forecasts are in line with what I've seen elsewhere. Even worst case supply chain snarl up type scenarios. If the economy is currently growing at trend, applying simple economic rules of thumb, it's very hard to get to negative growth, for example. It'll slow it, but it's hard to envision a big recession.
Quick break here. Trivia answer is next.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but a revocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist. One of the items on that list, reviewing your investment portfolio. And Mike, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is making no changes to their investment portfolio right up until the minute they retire and then making a drastic shift.
Yeah, I mean, look, that drastic shift can sometimes be called for, but only if the preparation hasn't been happening over the years. And that's where having a checklist in place and really addressing these things well ahead of retirement is the most comprehensive strategy and probably the best planned strategy that you can have out there.
And when we talk about an asset allocation in retirement, it's not just, hey, I'm X years old, I need to be, situated in a certain fashion. It's much more taking into account your income needs over different time horizons, any other big spending items that you might have, and obviously risk tolerance and time horizon for retirement. Big difference between retiring at 60 and retiring at 70.
Well, and the tools can change too, right? Even if you were in a tool that made you automatically more defensive as you got closer to retirement, like many 401ks do, it might not be the best distribution tool for you when you're actually ready to pull that trigger, stop working, and then ultimately begin taking withdrawals out of that 401k. And so really important to review this piece by piece.
Our guide this month is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. Again, the guide is titled Your Retirement Preparation Checklist, and the way to request it from Armstrong Advisory Group is by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, it's 11:34, and your major indices are up right now. Dow Jones is up 38 points, or just under 0.1%. The S&P 500 is up with just over 10 points, or just under 0.2%. And the NASDAQ is up 52 points, or 0.27%. Enterprise software provider Asana is down 18%. First quarter earnings of 5 cents per share, excluding items on revenue of $187 million, topped analyst estimates of 2 cents and $186 million. The stock had run up 17% in the past month. Guidewire Software, the insurance technology provider, is up 18% after fiscal third quarter earnings exceeded Wall Street estimates, coming in at 88 cents per share, excluding one-time items on revenue of $294 million, while analysts surveyed anticipated 46 cents and $284 million, respectively. Wells Fargo is up just under 1% after the Federal Reserve removed an asset cap dating back to 2018 on the San Francisco-based lender Wells Fargo. The regulatory restriction had limited the bank's growth while it revamped its governance and risk management following several controversies. And finally, Constellation Energy shares are down 3% after Citigroup downgraded to neutral from buy. Citi's call came after Constellation agreed Tuesday to sell nuclear generator power to Meta Platforms as part of a 20-year contract. I am Ben Kitchen, and that is Wall Street Watch. Let's pay off a little bit of trivia. Today's question was, which state passed the first minimum wage? Your answer? Massachusetts. The correct answer was provided by Sean in Concord, New Hampshire today. He has won a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. We play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Quick update just on the status of the reconciliation bill making its way through Congress. Having passed the House, about a week and a half ago? I can't remember exactly when. You've got this bill in front of the Senate where they're going to craft their own version, and then basically they're going to have to figure out how to merge these in a way that ends up passing both chambers in the event that the Senate does not take the bill as is from the House, which sounds like they won't. And this is not to say that you're not going to get a bill passed. I think you ultimately do. But much more, hey, this is why we don't really get into specifics of bills as they're, going through this process, is because oftentimes there are changes that can be fairly substantial as you go from point A to point B. And so if you were all up in arms about, the SALT deduction should be this or that, well, there's a decent chance that the final bill it might be different. If you were, talking about, potentially buying a new EV this year, and you're like, what's the state of play going to be for those credits? Again, we don't know because there's no final bill here. If you're wondering what's going to happen to all the different tax rates, again, no final bill. So I think that this is one that is still going to evolve probably over the next 1 to 3 months. I would be surprised if we're sitting here on Columbus Day without a bill done, but I think probably somewhere between 4th of July and Columbus Day is when this thing gets across the finish line, but we don't know the exact format it's going to take.
Yeah, late fall is not unusual for major pieces of legislation. A bill is always a budget is always a major piece.
Well, this is not a budget
involving major, tax changes to the tax code. I went back at one point and looked at the 01 Act, which was pretty consequential. That was, if I remember correctly, signed sometime in December or August. The tax changes signed into law during Trump's first term were signed very late in the year.
It was December, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be unusual for this to take more time. I guess it's more important that they get it done right to the extent that that's possible.
I think
it probably isn't, given what's expected in terms of spending and deficits.
Now, here's the big thing is unless you think there are going to be major changes on the tax side and spending side from what is in the original bill, it seems unlikely that this bill is going to alter the deficit trajectory in any meaningful way in either direction. And what I mean by that is basically right now this year, we're going to run somewhere between a 6 and 7% deficit relative to GDP. Where this bill passes, I don't exactly know, but odds are next year, deficit's going to be somewhere between 6 and 7% of GDP, unless there's a recession or some other, interceding event, a war or something along those lines. And I think the big place that I've come to on this is, look, ultimately, you're kind of, if this passes in any way, shape, or form, you're kind of enshrining, 6 to 7% deficits in perpetuity.
Well, they should grow because healthcare spending is growing. So the deficit should grow faster than the denominator in your ratio, which is GDP, because it's outpacing it. So, and I think CBO, the Congressional Budget Office,
they get to larger ones. It's like 7, 8, 9 years down the road.
Precisely because of that. The components that comprise GDP, that comprise the deficit, or that are driving it, are growing faster than GDP. That's the definition of unsustainability, and that's what has a lot of specialists in this area concerned.
And so the questions on there are, hey, if the U.S. is going to be perpetually borrowing 6 to 7% of GDP in good economic times and potentially 8 to 12% of GDP in bad economic times, what does that mean for the interest rate that you see on bonds, in particular longer-term bonds? And to this point, the bond market has shrugged this off better than I thought it would have. And it's not to say that this will or won't become a problem, because markets can shrug things off until it becomes apparent that they no longer can. I remember back in 2007, it was early 2008. I was working in New York City at the time, and I was, this was January, February, March 2008. Everyone and their grandmother had an opinion on subprime mortgages at the time. And it wasn't yet at the point where Bear Stearns had to be, taken out and, put to sleep. It was something where, okay, maybe we can muddle through this. Bernanke had said subprime was contained. You're kind of going. Was it Bernanke or was it Geithner that said that? I can't remember. Not Geithner. Paulson who said that. I think it was Paulson who said subprime is contained. It was one of the two. Either way.
Bernanke used some regrettable phrase.
It was either him or Paulson, I forget who,
Yeah.
but they said around the time, like, subprime is contained, and markets traded okay for the better part of almost 2 years before the subprime problem actually became, what it was. You had, it was apparent back in 2007 that there was an issue, and markets didn't really fall apart until the fall of '08. So on this U.S. deficit piece and yields on U.S. Treasuries, it's perfectly reasonable, even if there is a problem that may become apparent, that it takes time to actually get there, because the 10-year Treasury today is actually seeing, money flowing into it because of concerns about an economic slowdown, and so it's down to 4.383%.
Yeah, there are a couple different views on this. One is the sudden stop, I'll just call it view or theory or whatever, which is the phrase suggests means there's effectively a bond buyer's strike. People no longer believe that you're going to pay back the loans that you've taken out, which is what bonds are. That would suggest, if that view of how markets operate is correct, that would suggest a one-time, discrete, big jump in yields,
Sure.
or equivalently a decline in bond prices. For a big developed economy, particularly one whose debt is viewed as a safe haven, or was, I don't know if it still is a safe haven asset, that would be unusual. Sudden stops are more common in emerging markets, and we've all witnessed them at one time or another. Think Latin America in the early 80s, think Mexico in the mid 90s. Their currency will just take time to put upward pressure on rates, and as the deficits and debt situation deteriorates. You could say, well, isn't it obvious that it's going to? Yeah, the writing does appear to be on the wall. There's no political will to rein in the spending that's accounting for most of the growth in the deficit, i.e. Social Security and more specifically healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid. What does that imply? Gradually upward moving rates and probably elevated inflation. That seems to be a reasonable baseline scenario. And maybe that's already priced in. We don't know.
Could be.
Maybe rates would be a lot lower were it not for these expected dynamics.
Folks, if you are thinking about retiring, whether it's this year, next year, or hey, you're just not sure when it's going to be, the Armstrong Advisory Group has a new guide available this month. It's titled Your Retirement Prep Checklist, and it walks through a number of items to make sure you have answers to before you finally say, hey, you know what? I'm calling it quits. What types of things are you talking about? Hey, how do you evaluate what your expenses look like in retirement? Do you need to change up insurance coverages? If you're thinking about moving, have you accounted for different cost of living? All these different items need to be accounted for when you retire so that you can have some peace of mind as to, hey, do I actually feel good about my financial situation heading into retirement? The guide is titled Your Retirement Prep Checklist, and there are two ways that you can request it. First, by calling 800-393-4001. Second is by going to armstrongadvisory.com and clicking on the button right there on the front page to request your complimentary financial guide. Again, the guide is titled Your Retirement Prep Checklist, and the ways to request it are by calling 800-393-4001 or by going to armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Piece in Market Watch today. It's titled Young People Lack Financial Literacy, but Older Folks Aren't That Much Smarter. Ouch, we're all just dumb. Is that the theory, Mark?
It has always been the case that people have struggled with anything beyond very basic math concepts. So financial literacy is just an extension of that, in my view.
So big things that we're seeing here. There is a financial literacy test called the PFIN Index. It is 28 questions long. And in 2024, adults taking this correctly answered about 50% of those questions in that PFIN index. Big things. Most respondents didn't realize that a retirement savings plan with an employer match is better than one without the match. So people didn't realize that that was an employer giving them money just for contributing. 60% or almost 60% didn't realize that Social Security benefits last for your entire lifetime after you start claiming them. Only about 30% of respondents knew that Medicare covers about 2/3 of retirees' health costs. So we're not even getting into, really complex types of financial questions, but more, hey, do you know how the programs that are in the United States work? And I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the answer to this? Like, how do we fix this? And I think what I find most disheartening about this is I go through this math quite often where if you're someone who works a normal 8-hour day, you work 2,000 hours a year. That's your standard year based on how many working days there are, about 250 an 8-hour day. So 2,000 hours a year. If you work from age, call it 20 to age 65, you're working 90,000 hours over the course of your career. 90,000 hours. That's a lot of hours, man. If you're working 90,000 hours, or even let's just do this on an annual basis, you work 2,000 hours. How do you not take 1% of that time off to your own, 20 hours a year, about a half hour a month, to educate yourself on making sure that you're actually getting the most bang for your buck in terms of the money that you're earning or that you may be entitled to through, different programs? Because not everyone needs to be an expert on all this stuff, but just saying, hey, can you take a half hour a month to spend, working on your finances? That's all it takes to get to kind of a base level of proficiency, I think. Just so that you understand, hey, how does Medicare actually work? Now, do you need to understand how Medicare works when you're 21? No, you can probably save that for, a half hour a month when you are, or a half hour, they say a month or a week, whatever it is. Half hour a month when you're, 60. You can probably start figuring out Medicare at 55 or something like that. But, at 20, hey, do I understand, exactly how credit card interest works? Do I understand why not to rely on payday loans unless, there's absolutely no alternative? There's always something more to learn, and all you got to do is spend, again, a little bit of time here and there, and I think it can really bring some value to you.
Yeah, to me, it's a failure of those that do financial education. It's never the student's fault. It's always the teacher's fault. We're not communicating it, and I would include those of us in the financial communication industry, which we are for a couple hours a day on this show. We're not either explaining it well, and not us in particular. You
can say that we don't explain it well.
I'm pointing the finger at everybody here.
We're bad at our job. Just say it how it is.
We don't demystify sufficiently. We presume or assume that people know too much. We expand on things they're not interested in, don't elaborate on basic concepts that they do need a refresher with respect to. And we all have domains where we're not comfortable. I need my mechanic to explain things to me like I'm 10 years old and not a particularly bright 10-year-old.
And there are some things where I don't even want to know them. So, it's like I don't need to know how...
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A good teacher knows what the extraneous stuff is.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, Stack Roulette.
The Financial Exchange is now available across the country and around the world on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. Stay informed about Wall Street trends, economic policy, and breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is live on SiriusXM's Business Radio Channel 132. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Protecting your assets is your most important financial responsibility, and creating a trust is a great way to help. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law. Their brand new guide out this month is called Unlocking the Power of Irrevocable Medicaid Trusts. There are many types of trusts to consider, but a revocable trust can establish the kinds of safeguards you'll need to protect your assets long term. Learn about how the trust can protect your assets from probate and potentially eliminate your estate taxes. If you're closing in on retirement and have an existing trust that needs a second look, or if you need a new trust to ensure that your assets are secure, call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and let them help you create a plan that gives you confidence in your financial future. That number again is 866-848-5699, or request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Planning for retirement is much like cramming for a final exam, and no stone should be left unturned before you're ready to take that step. Hi, this is Chuck Zodda from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we help folks just like you plan for retirement every day. Our new guide is called Your Retirement Planning Checklist, and in it, we'll remind you of the various issues that may be most important to your planning process. Let's start with the date you choose to retire. That'll depend on a variety of factors, including your income and your health. You may also want to modify your investment portfolio to create ways to maintain the wealth you've already earned. And you'll also want to make sure that you're prepared for major unexpected expenses. Life moves quickly, and you'll need to know if you can cover that cost. Call us today at 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or request it online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
See you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Subscribe to our page and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Mark, what do you got for me for Stack Roulette?
Sort of related to our last story about financial literacy or lack thereof. This is a positive spin on that topic. Americans, according to the Wall Street Journal, are finally saving enough to what they're relative to what they're supposed to be saving for retirement. So says Fidelity. Fidelity is a large record keeper. If you are employed by a large, say, Fortune 500 company, your 401k is probably record kept by Fidelity, Vanguard, T. Rowe Price. They record keep the vast majority
American
of
funds.
Assets. Yeah, I was just going with the big three who have like an 80% market share or something. But
Used to be American funds was one of the big ones there, and that's changed in the last couple decades.
I'm amazed that they're still in the business. Well, and we don't have to get into that right now. The point, only because their funds are really expensive. This is actually tied into it. You know, it can be kept really simple, these points about financial literacy. Invest regularly, save as much as you can, use low-cost, broadly diversified options, and take advantage of your employer match. If everybody did that, financial security would be far more prevalent. It's not that hard. And Fidelity says that people are finally on track. They're saving on average nearly 15% of their pre-tax income, which is about what's recommended.
Good news if that carries forth, well, it's probably that's the case amongst people that have the accounts open with Fidelity.
There is some selection there, yeah.
It's what percentage of the workforce doesn't save, into a retirement account and doesn't even get counted there then. Let's take a quick break for the entire rest of the day. We will see you back here tomorrow. We got jobless claims coming out. We'll discuss those and a whole lot more.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless.